Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is Wednesday, July the 1st. We are starting one more live stream and I want to ask you, if you're here with us, I want to ask you if you can see me, if you can hear me. We typically answer messages on two platforms. We answer questions on Instagram and we answer questions on YouTube. Okay, and we also stream on Facebook, on LinkedIn, but for the purpose of sending your comments and the questions, please use either Instagram or YouTube. And again, if you're here with us, please let me know if you can see me, if you can hear me. All right, still waiting for some confirmation. Let me know if you're here with us. Just type a quick message on Instagram or YouTube if you can see us and if you can hear us. General Principal, boa tarde, senhor Oliveira. I can hear and see you. Thank you, General Principal. I will assume we are also good on Instagram. So yes, let's get started. And as usual, we're gonna take a look at news. So sharing here, this is Estadão, a major Brazilian newspaper. I think it is the second top newspaper in Brazil. I think Folha de São Paulo has a higher reader base, but Estadão should be a close second. Very interesting. Both newspapers, they are printed in São Paulo, or they were printed in São Paulo. Actually, they're still producing the printed version. But of course, like nowadays, most readers, they access content through the website, and that's exactly what we are doing over here. And the main headline is talking about President Lula's son, and the Brazilian Federal Police is investigating President Lula's son, and people call him Lulinha, right? Lula is the president, and Lulinha, like the small Lula, or that's like the way we call. Sometimes we're gonna use it. The Inha is like a diminutive version of the main word, right? So there is Lula, the president, and Lulinha is the son of President Lula, and it looks like he moved abroad, and the Brazilian Federal Police is saying, well, he's basically evading like a potential arrest. And interesting to note, there is also a son of President Bolsonaro in the U.S. Who is evading arrest, and his thesis is that like the Brazilian Supreme Court is like actually chasing him for political reasons, right? So bottom line here, there are like concerning things, to say the least, on both sides of the aisle, right? So that's the main headline over here. Of course, like you can see, the Brazilian, soccer team in the U.S. is a major topic of news every single day. Soccer, as you probably know, for us Brazilians is something huge. So that's what you see over here. And we have the United States playing tonight, it looks like. And Brazil's next game is going to be on Sunday. All right, let's take a look at our partner for real estate, Remax. Remax is a major brand in the United States, and Remax is also present in Brazil. We recommend typically Remax nomad states. They are based in Rio de Janeiro but working throughout the country. And there you go. This is their contact information. If you want to take note, you can reach out to them, and they could potentially help you with getting a short list of properties in a location of your preference. All right, back to the chat. Let's see if we have anything so far. Jonathan Macmillan, thank you, Jonathan, for confirming. Jonathan confirming he can see us. Thank you, Jonathan. And he's also asking, is it impossible for an expat to rent a property in Brazil when their income is retirement 401k income? Jonathan, there is, this is going to be a market thing, right? Naturally, there are no laws or regulation addressing how a foreign citizen would rent a property. That's basically a contract between a landlord and a tenant, right? Now, this said, there are customs, like in the marketplace, and they like to see consistent income, and they like to see a credit score, and they like to see someone who looks like they are going to be around for the longer term, right? So whenever there is a foreign citizen, these are going to be the three concerns a landlord is going to be addressing or considering before agreeing to rent to a foreign citizen. In my opinion, typically the main concern is going to be consistency or certainty that you're going to be here in the long term, particularly if you try to rent something with a passport, right? To a Brazilian landlord, that's typically a red flag. And the reasoning goes like this: well, this person is here now, maybe they are going to have a fight with a partner if they are here because of a partner. And guess what? 2 months down the line, they are going to lock the place and, disappear. And in Brazil, it's not like the United States. In the United States, when you have a rental, owners, they typically retain the possibility of basically opening the house, the apartment, and entering even when this place is rented, right? Like they remain owners. Not in Brazil. Like in Brazil, there is a much stronger separation. Like when you rent a place, the landlord is not supposed to enter the place at all, right? If the landlord does that, open the door and enter the place, that's basically breaking into, and there could be even a criminal claim against the landlord. So the concern here from the landlord is that he's going to rent it to you. 2 months down the line, you disappear, and now he's in a pickle because he's going to need to hire an attorney to file for, eviction and obtain possession of this place back. So that's the first concern. The second one, credit. Your credit in the U.S., it doesn't read in Brazil. And many people, they get a CPF, they don't actually use the CPF, so there's no credit score. Or when there is a credit score, the credit score is going to be low because naturally, the credit score system in Brazil doesn't know you, right? So that's the second concern. The third one, and that's more specifically what you asked, Jonathan, but I wanted to give you like an overview. The third question is about the income in particular. So the cleaner the income, like the easier for the landlord to read it, the better. Okay, so if you have like W-2s, right? This is very similar to what they see in Brazil. We typically call olerite, of course, instead of W-2s. But this is going to show that this person is receiving income like on a recurring basis. In terms of 401k, there is nothing, against 401ks. Actually, people, typically in Brazil have no clue about what a 401k is. But I would, instead of saying 401k, I would say, listen, I have my retirement income. And this is my retirement income. And I'm going to show, you show a summary of what you're drawing from your 401k. And on top of that, you would show, typically in Brazil, bank statements showing that you're drawing this money every month. Okay, now all of this said, what we see very often is that what's going to help you secure a rental in Brazil is when you actually have a larger deposit, right? So let's say if a landlord would require a 3 months deposit from a Brazilian, they may very well ask for 6 months, okay? And there were cases like I remember a client who paid like a full year in advance. It was a really high-end property, and like the owner wasn't interested in renting to a foreign citizen because of the concerns I told you. But once the foreign citizen said, you know what, I can pay you a full year ahead of time, the landlord, became very happy about the foreign citizen. All right, so this is more or less the dynamic of renting a property in Brazil. All right, Jonathan is also saying, I was told that the landlord wants to see a Brazilian income or Brazilian business started. Yeah, so again, Jonathan, this is going to be a contractual relationship. The landlord can, ask for many things, right? Like, I mean, his concern here is that he probably has no clue about what a 401k is, and whatever paperwork you're providing, like, they cannot really understand or make sure it's legit. So that's more or less what they're saying. But between the lines, what they're saying is like, I don't feel comfortable about this prospective tenant, and it's not personal. Just like I said, it is something about the risk of issues down the line. James Rochas, bom dia, amigo. Bom dia, James. Do you know about this company named Acerto? I got multiple messages from them regarding that. Confused, scam or normal? Got no idea, James. Sorry about that. I don't know what Acerto is. But if you're getting messages from a private entity regarding that, I wouldn't engage with them. Okay. Now, typically in Brazil, when you have that, this is going to be typically handled by Serasa. Serasa is one of the main credit bureaus in Brazil. I'm going to write down over here in the chat window, Serasa Credit Bureau. All right, this one is like, they are the leading credit agency nowadays in Brazil. And that's where I would look at if you have any concerns about that. All right, James, but no clue about Acerto. All right, we have a Nirvo. What's up with the taxes on rental property for investors? Yes, Nirvo, yeah. So there is a change like in the tax framework. And that's what you probably heard, and, to give you an idea, even accountants, right? Like, we have a close accountant who works with us. He's like, attending some training regarding the new taxes. But the bottom line is like, the government is trying to crack down on, people who are renting a property out, not declaring the earnings and not paying the taxes, right? So the government is using a different techniques to kind of detect when you're doing the rental, and they're gonna want to collect taxes, right? Like, some of the changes, they want to collect the taxes as on a monthly basis. So think about the United States. You typically pay taxes, right? Like, I mean, you could, of course, have like withholding on a monthly basis, but typically you file like once a year, right? Like in Brazil, the idea is that you will need to provide an ongoing accounting to the government. make those payments on a monthly basis, and you need to show the expenses you have, because they would charge you a meaningful percentage on the on the profit, right? So what Brazilians and foreign citizens alike are doing, like they need to keep a tab of how much money they are making, how much money they're spending, and then they're gonna pay you know, the taxes on the profit. But there is a lot of talk regarding that, and this change is going into effect this current year, Nervel. All right. Nervel, buy, rent or rent, refinance, repeat, BR. Is this possible in Brazil? Refinance, all right. So buy, rent, refinance, repeat, right? So you're probably talking about a technique, right? You buy, you're renting, and basically you are acquiring properties with someone else's money. I think that's the concept, right, Nervel? And if that's possible in Brazil, I would say in Brazil we don't have as much credit as you would in the United States. And typically, you know, banks are gonna be available to, you know, help you buy your first property, but depending on your income level, right? And then we're talking back, you know, we're talking again about what we discussed with Jonathan. You know, like your challenge is going to be how to show your income, right? Assuming that you are a foreign citizen, how the bank is going to understand that you can, I don't know, afford, like, you know, a bunch of properties, and they typically will not look into each property individually, because from a theory perspective, let's say if the property is kind of self-paying themselves, right? The properties are paying themselves through the rent. I mean, they shouldn't be that concerned. But typically, banks are not going to do this type of analysis, Nervel. I would say not impossible. It really depends, you know, on the stage in which you are in your journey in Brazil. Because we have clients who are in Brazil for a while, and they are filing their taxes correctly, right? Filing their taxes correctly. And guess what? They have a huge stream of income in the United States. This is going to show on their tax return in Brazil, because Brazil taxes your global income, not just the money that you make in Brazil. And then once you file in the tax return in Brazil, guess what? Like the banks, they are going to look at your tax return and going to say, listen, if he's paying this boatload of money in taxes, that's naturally because he's making a lot of money, and therefore let's, you know, lend as much money as he needs to buy the houses, right? So as you can see, things are interconnected. And yes, it depends on the stage in which you are in your journey. All right, let's see what else we have. General principle, Senhor Oliveira, have you seen any changes with immigration demand with global changes of 2025, 2026? Anti-immigration protests, war in the Middle East, rising real. Interesting question, General Principal. Yes, and it fluctuates, right? Like, I mean, many people from the United States, they are, you know, moving to either Brazil or Portugal. Many times because of political reasons, right? Like they're upset with President Donald Trump, and they want to live elsewhere, right? So believe it or not, that's a major driver of people moving out of the United States. There are many people who are trying to come to Brazil desperately, right? Like the Haitians, you know, other people who were or who are still in the United States. They were under a protected status, and now they cannot remain in the United States. They want to go elsewhere, but guess what? They don't want to go back to Haiti. They want to go elsewhere, you know, any place other than Haiti. So there is also a large demand. Unfortunately, there are not that many pathways for Haitians like to come from abroad to Brazil. But yes, now I don't know if that's true or not, right? Like maybe that's just a possibility. The United States has classified like two criminal organizations in Brazil as terrorists, right? Like so, there was, there was the subject of news, and I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but we did see a drop in demand from the United States once the news of those criminal organizations being targeted as terrorists, right? So yes, we do see those things typically during like the summer. There is usually a peak of demand at the beginning of the summer, and then another peak around the end of the summer. In the middle, it looks like people are doing something better than thinking about immigration. So we also observe, a meaningful drop in July. Okay, so that's what we see, general principle. But yes, like I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's war, like in the Middle East. So we have some buyers of real estate property, not necessarily people moving to Brazil, but we have people from the United Arab Emirates buying properties in Brazil. Okay, that's another trend related to the war. Rising real, yeah, some people they get caught up into the currency exchange fluctuations. They said, well, if it was like R$ 6 for $1, I would buy a house, but now it's 5. I don't like it, and then I tell them, listen, R$ 5 for $1 is still a huge deal because in the past it was 3 or 4. But yes, I mean, people react to news in different ways. Very interesting question, general principle. All right, let's see what else we have. James Rochas, also how to get a credit card here. I use a Nubank, PicPay, but all the cards are debit and no option to get credit cards like in Europe. James, so typically a Nubank would offer you a credit card, right? Nubank is a fully digital bank, and they have an option, right, in which, and maybe you could check, like you could try to call them, to try to call their customer service, maybe using, a friend of yours or a partner. But they have an option which is very similar to like the first credit cards you typically get in the US, which is a credit card in which you fund your line of credit, right? Like meaning you don't actually have a line of credit. If you want to have 1,000 reais or 5,000 reais in line of credit, you're gonna advance this money to Nubank, and they say, you know what, now you have a line of credit. Okay, so this is exactly for people like you who are gonna be building your credit. And yes, getting a credit card is a very typical way, both in Brazil and in the United States, for you to build credit. Take a look at Nubank. Maybe you have this option and you don't see it, or maybe it's not available for you yet. And if that's the case, let's say you talk to Nubank, they say, well, this product is not available for you, James. What you could do is try to get a crediário, right? Crediário in Brazil means when you buy stuff on credit. Okay, so if you go to a store like Casas Bahia, right? I'm gonna write down over here, Casas Bahia. Casas Bahia is a traditional retail store. They sell TV sets, furniture, like a bunch of household items, and they typically extend credit. Okay, so if you're gonna buy stuff, even if you don't need it, you could buy, I don't know, household items on credit for the specific purpose of creating a credit history. Because guess what? Yes, they are gonna update the credit bureaus with your purchase on credit. All right, so two ways, James. Check your new bank. If not available, try the retailers, and potentially after you being getting stuff on credit, a new bank would like take notice of your profile and potentially offer you this type of beginner credit card. But Nubank is typically one of the easiest ways. Okay, now that's for most people, all right? Now, if you have a very meaningful source of income, right? Let's say you are in a high tax bracket in the US, something you could do is to try Santander, the Santander Bank in Brazil. Santander goes like this: like if you don't have money, many times they don't even want to do banking with you. But if you have a lot of money, they are typically gonna get you a credit card from the get go. Okay, so if your profile is more of a regular one, retailers, if you have like meaningful income from the U.S., that could be the case of trying Santander. All right. Okay. Jonathan Macmillan, does your firm handle and negotiate rental agreements? Jonathan, yes, we could potentially help with, and we did help some clients with this need. I just don't think it is cost effective, right? Like, I mean, we're not realtors, and therefore, when you use our services, it's like you're paying a lawyer, right, to negotiate rentals. It is a little bit expensive, I would say, but particularly for clients who have a long-term relationship with us, many times they say, listen, I don't care. I'm going to pay, the fees. I pay a block of hours. And then, yes, our team would, work on your behalf with the rental agencies. All right, Jonathan. Aaron. Aaron, Tigrinho, all right. Give you money every month, hope to get rich in exchange. Leão, give you money every month, hope to get SUS and security in exchange. It's almost like a poem, right, Aaron? Such an interesting entry. And now I will have to spend some time to explain to our audience what Tigrinho is, and Tigrinho. Like it gets me concerned. It gets me concerned sometimes, Aaron, and I really, see myself, wondering about the future of this whole thing in Brazil. So Tigrinho, for those of you who don't know, is like betting, right? Like, just like in the US now, you have a lot of betting games. You have like those websites in which you're gonna, bet money on a certain sports outcome or even other stuff that's not sports. We have this thing going on in Brazil, so there are betting websites. Tigrinho, if I'm not mistaken, is different for two reasons, right? The first one, they were one of the pioneers in terms of, this type of games in Brazil. And the second one, I don't think they have a betting structure. It's more like a casino game. And maybe it's even illegal, right? Because I took a look another day, like I read an article and I didn't see Tigrinho in the list of the, top betting companies in Brazil. So I guess maybe Tigrinho is still illegal, but Tigrinho was like a pioneer. And there is a devastating effect in Brazil because, I don't know, like people are, getting addicted to the betting games. And unfortunately, right, like the federal government, the current administration made those things legal, right? So they said, listen, if these games are, moving a boatload of money, guess what? I want my share of it. And so the federal government is actually supporting those betting companies, and they are taking over. And there are, I'm not talking about thousands, I'm talking about millions, believe it or not, millions of people who are becoming bankrupt because of the betting games, to a point in which the Brazilian federal government is taking notice, and they are trying to find a way to reduce the debt created by those betting games, right? And unfortunately, to make things even worse, typically those who are going to be losing game, who are going to be basically, like throwing their money into a trash can, are going to be like, the poorest segments of the Brazilian population. So Tigrinho is like, I don't know, like something extremely destructive in Brazil. Leão, right? Now let's go back to Aaron's poem. The second part of Aaron's poem is about Leão. So Leão means a lion in Portuguese, and that's how we call the Brazilian Revenue Service, right? Like, so if you're reading like an informal piece of news in Brazil, they say, well, the Leão is coming, for your money, right? Or these are the upcoming changes that you're gonna see in the Leão, okay? Or, make sure to keep an eye at the Leão, right? And so Leão is the revenue service. And going back here to Aaron's poem, Tigrinho, like this betting game, you give money, right? Like you throw your money out every month, hoping to get rich, and you never get, naturally. And the second side is like the Leão, the revenue service. You're gonna give your money every month, like hoping that you're gonna get SUS, which is like, the public health care system in Brazil, and safety in exchange, right? Which is always a challenge in Brazil. No need to lie here, right? Like, no need to lie. I mean, I'm not peddling Brazil. I'm having a very transparent conversation with you. Even myself, like, I mean, we have a driver to be present, like in the downtown areas of the cities in which we are present. But sometimes it's not easy, right? Like, I mean, the downtown area of São Paulo is always a challenge, and there is no way to deny that, right? No way to deny. So that's what Aaron is talking about over here. Like, you pay a boatload of taxes in Brazil, and typically you don't feel like you're getting back what you should. In the United States, I mean, a tax bracket, I think it's comparable to what we have in Brazil. But my take is that you get, substantially more for what you are paying. Of course, things are not perfect in the US. There are so many challenges. But when it comes to security, safety, like the United States is, I don't know, like, 100 of years ahead of Brazil. Thank you so much, Aaron, for such interesting entry. All right. Yeah, Aaron is also explaining here, Tigrinho is like betting. You can guess the number someone else is thinking of. I always assume they're going to tell me, no, I was thinking of another number. All right. I didn't know, like, Tigrinho. And Aaron, sharing something interesting. The first time I heard about Tigrinho, I was in Ceará. I was in Ceará State. I was in the town of Beberibe. Right? Beberibe is like an hour drive from Fortaleza. And I was, going from Morro Branco, which is a beach, like to the downtown area of the city of Beberibe, right? I'm going to write over here just like, as a reference. Beberibe, or Morro Branco, is the beach, okay? Morro Branco is the beach. Beberibe is the city. And Ceará is the state. Okay, so now I'm writing this. All right, I wrote this on YouTube. Okay, and so I was giving I was offering a ride to this lady, like she was the cleaning lady of the posada, right, in which I was staying, and then I don't know what we're discussing. Like I think it was about salaries or about some type of thing, and she said, well, now everybody is like spending all their money on Tigrinho, but it was several years ago. I think it was like 3 years ago at least. And it was very shocking because Tigrinho, right? Like the name is catchy, and by the way, Tigrinho means like little tiger. Okay, little tiger is the name of the betting game. But yes, betting games in Brazil are extremely destructive, and they are causing like lots of social challenges, right? And like I think we have enough social challenges, and this is just aggravating. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we have. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any questions for now. So let's talk a little bit about Brazilian citizenship. Brazilian citizenship is always a topic of interest to everyone who is in a journey in Brazil. And there are different tracks for that, right? Like there is the marriage to a Brazilian citizen. There is like if you have a child in Brazil, you are also entitled eventually, right? Like you don't apply right away. So there are different tracks. I would guess there are about seven tracks, around seven different tracks for you to acquire Brazilian citizenship. And we are developing, like we are actually consolidating a bunch of pages we have on our website. We are trying to consolidate that into a guide in which you're gonna, check and see all the available options and see in which option you're gonna fit best, right? So that's the concept. But something very unique to Brazil, or maybe not unique to Brazil, but something that's at least different from what you see in Portugal, for instance, is that typically or almost always the Brazilian citizenship is going to require that you're living in Brazil, right? So there is this very fixated idea in the Brazilian legal framework that like we're not giving out citizenships for convenience. That's never the case, right? Like you're gonna acquire citizenship if you are actually living in Brazil. So many times, we're gonna have a consultation with a couple. They're gonna be, I don't know, in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in the United Arab Emirates, in Australia. Typically, guess what? A country in which English is the spoken language, because that's like typically our clientele, and they're gonna say, well, now we married, right? My wife or my husband, they wanna secure the Brazilian citizenship, right? And then my next question would be, all right, like where do you live? Well, we live in the United Kingdom. And then I'm going to say, all right, so the journey is typically first to secure the permanent residency, okay? You need to be living in Brazil on a permanent basis. And after you secure the permanent residency, after a while, that's when you're going to qualify for the Brazilian citizenship application, as long as you speak and write and read and understand at least an average level of Brazilian Portuguese. All right, so that's a typical misconception. People think, well, just because I'm married to a Brazilian, I can basically now just apply and get my passport, right? Like some people, they don't even articulate the concept of citizenship. They just say, well, we married, like how do I get my passport, right? Like, and that's natural. Okay, people are not working in the immigration or naturalization fields, and there are all types of misconception. But typically, you have this component of living in Brazil. The only exception, right, like to the living in Brazil piece, is gonna be like for children of Brazilians born abroad. So let's say if you are married to a Brazilian, and if you live in the United States, you live in the United States, and then you have a child, that child, because that child has a Brazilian parent, they could secure the Brazilian citizenship by basically, registering their foreign birth certificate with a Brazilian consulate or embassy. All right. Now, the challenge that you have, like when you don't do that as a child, or better saying, your parents don't do that when you are a child, is that, like, let's say we have, this case on a very recurring basis. Like, I mean, I would say every other week we're going to have someone knocking on our door with this type of situation. Like, they were born to a Brazilian parent abroad, but their parent is no longer alive. And therefore, they are unable to deliver the many documents that the consulate or that the Brazilian consulate or Brazilian embassy is going to need for their procedure. Then they are going to be in a type of catch-22 because, they can no longer get those documents because their parent is dead, right? And that's very, very disappointing. Now, there is a plan B for those folks, right? It's not like they are now, doomed. And the plan B, guess what? The plan B requires a registration of a Brazilian birth certificate. Like, if they are unable to register into the Brazilian consulate or embassy because of lack of the additional documents that are required, they can register directly in Brazil. Okay, now when they register like this foreign birth certificate directly in Brazil, they are gonna trigger a different scenario. That's the plan B I'm talking about. This different scenario is gonna be to file. You're gonna file a lawsuit into the Brazilian federal court system through an attorney. You're not going to do yourself. You're going to need to hire an attorney. You're going to file this federal lawsuit requesting a federal judge to recognize your Brazilian citizenship. And basically, the two requirements are going to be you have a Brazilian birth certificate, meaning you took your U.S. or from any other country birth certificate and recorded in Brazil. And then you need to file this lawsuit while living on a permanent basis in Brazil. Okay, I know lots of technical stuff, and believe it or not, there is even more to it. Right? It's not as straightforward as I'm saying. I'm explaining in a more simplified way, but just talking about a subject that is typically very interesting to foreign citizens. All right. Okay, general principle. Senhor Oliveira, you mentioned you are piloting a tax program for foreign residents. Are you still accepting clients, and would you be able to share more details? General principle, yes. I would, actually recommend if you could, send an email and, you can just say, listen, I'm interested in the tax filing, service. Just send an email, and then Justin is going to send it to Kina. Kina is going to get you in our waiting list, right? We're targeting like to accommodate this coming November, like about 100 clients. And we are getting our, resources in place for that, because then we're going to be doing like every month we need to do the Carnê Leão, right? Carnê Leão is like the monthly filing for your taxes. You file and you pay on a monthly basis, by the way, right? And then, when it comes like to April, actually, May, that's when we actually file the main tax return. But this is a service we're going to be offering. The idea is that you have a single focal point for your tax filings in Brazil. We don't do tax filings in the US, but we have a firm that could assist our clients who are using our service in Brazil to do their filings in the US if needed. But we're gonna be covering like the Brazilian side, okay? And taxation is a somewhat concerning topic to me because I mean it's dealing with money, and many times if you misunderstand a single thing that I'm saying, like you could screw up big time, right? So I'm always concerned with liability, and that's why we typically don't like to offer this service like as a mass product, right? Like I need to see first the profile of the person we're gonna be bringing aboard, and if it sounds like a reasonable person, then yes, we are happy to provide this service. We're gonna have additional availability like in November. We have like a waiting list like with a bunch of people, not exceeding 100 people yet, but that's the concept, general principle, right? And we're gonna try to charge something like reasonable. It's gonna be 1 year of services. I think we are shooting for $675 US like per year. And basically you pay this fee and you have someone to work all year long with you. Okay, that's the concept. I hope that was helpful. Aaron, if you buy property and fund retirement accounts first, meet someone and get married under separação de bens second, what não pensão alimentícia risks, things I buy should be aware of. All right, Aaron, it's such an interesting question. We have a client. He's like walking the same pathway that you're saying, and it's exactly the case. Like he's interested in setting up, type of união estável, but not like truth paperwork. Like he wanna kind of join his partner in Florianópolis, Santa Catarina, and he put the thing on hold because we spoke and we explained it would be cleaner for him to buy the property first. Okay, so very similar pattern here that we're talking about. Fund retirement accounts first. So yes, I mean, like big acquisitions, big life events that you handle before the união estável are going to be very helpful for your protection, right? And you're talking about pensão alimentícia. For those of you who don't know, pensão alimentícia is going to be like spousal support. And this is going to exist in Brazil big time. No matter if you're going to be formally married or not, guess what? If you're living with someone for a couple of years, or even 3 years, or even 1 year, or whatever time the judge thinks is reasonable, you could be required to pay support to this other person. And this is even more present in the relationships with foreign citizens because of the very common power disparity between the foreign citizen and the Brazilian. Okay, so think about it like you have someone who's coming from the US, they have a really substantial level of income, and then they meet like a younger person in Brazil. They start this relationship, they start to pay the bills. They are basically supporting like this local Brazilian, and then 3 years down the line they say, you know what, like I don't want that anymore, right? Like and you think you can just walk away. There is a very meaningful chance this Brazilian is going to file for união estável. Okay, so the Brazilian is going to claim that even though you never married, even though you never got any papers, guess what? You were living like a married couple, and now you can't just walk away and leave the person on their own. Like you're going to need to pay at least for a couple of years, like, in terms of transitioning this Brazilian back to the market, if you will. I don't know if it's gross to say like that, but just, trying to explain a concept here. So until this person is like able to, I don't know, continue their lives, guess what? You're going to need to pay support to this Brazilian, all right? So that's the pensão alimentícia that Aaron's talking about over here. And he's asking about what other risks, right? What non-pensão alimentícia risks, things I buy should be I aware of. Right, so Aaron, it's not just about property and retirement, right? Like, I mean, during the timeline, any and everything that you buy, it could be considered community property, right? Community property in the United States is the concept of properties acquired during the existence of marriage, either a formal or, guess what, an informal marriage. Informal marriages in the United States are common, are called typically common law marriage. Right? What is a common law marriage? It's the same thing as the união estável in Brazil. Okay, so I would say, Aaron, difficult to tell you, but let's say if you buy, you know, like a piece of art or work of art, right? You buy a painting, you know, like from Van Gogh, like for $1 million. Guess what? Like, you know, this painting could be, you know, the object of distribution based on união estável, right? So not only property and retirement, but pretty much anything and everything. All right, follow-up message from Aaron. So if the foreigner buys gold chains for the wife and they split, he gets to take half of them back as community property? Probably not, Aaron, because then it would be a gift, and the judge most probably would again think about the unbalance of the relationship, right? Like Aaron is a rich man. Aaron can buy many other, you know, gold chains. So, you know, leave the gold chain from the wife alone. We're not gonna add the gold chain in the distribution, okay? So yes, we also have this concept of, you know, gifts. There are exceptions, like if you're receiving inheritance. What I like to emphasize whenever I'm having this type of, you know, consultation with a client is that you know, it's very difficult to anticipate what is going to happen in a real união estável lawsuit, right? Like, so there are different like legal concepts that we articulate, we explain to you how they are, but we never know how this is going to play out in reality, okay? Because in Brazil, you know, there are all types of judges. You're going to have a judge who's going to look at you and, you know, the judge is going to think, well, you know, poor foreign citizen, like, you know, they are being taken advantage by the Brazilian party, right? And the next judge is going to think the exact opposite. They're going to say, you know what, those gringos, they just come over here with a boatload of money. They enjoy the youth of a Brazilian national, and now they want to discard the Brazilian as a, you know, as a piece of old clothes, right? Like, that's the mentality. I'm going to punish this this person, right? Like, I mean, so you see, like, there is a very human component whenever the união estável claim is triggered. And of course, like, you're going to have like those major pieces of law, regulation, interpretation, jurisprudence, but how this is going to play out, very difficult to tell you. And of course, if there is something that is like outside of the you know, parameters of what a regular case, you know, should be, you can always appeal to a higher court. But I think you get the idea, right? Like, I mean, whenever you need to appeal something, like you're spinning your wheels, you're spending money, it's a very you know, very troublesome situation indeed. All right, let's see what else we have over here. Okay, so people in the Instagram, they are really quiet, and I guess it is because of a lack of a keyboard. Like, if you're just watching on your Instagram, difficult for you to type stuff because you will need to type on your phone. So yes, people from Instagram typically quieter. And very important, like I said, we don't have access to the chat if you are watching through LinkedIn or TikTok. So if you are on TikTok and you wanna, chat with us, then unfortunately you need to come to either YouTube or Instagram. That's the only two platforms we support with actual chat capability. So if you are texting something on TikTok and and you feel like you're being ignored, that's not the case. It is just that we are unable, unfortunately, to read the chat messages from TikTok. All right, we have Jonathan. Do you believe an expat should keep all separated financial accounts from their Brazilian partner or new spouses? Or is there instances where the expat loses their Brazilian property upon their end? Jonathan, so I'm going to answer your question from two different perspectives. One is going to be like from the legal perspective, and another one is going to be from a more practical one, right? So from the legal perspective, you're never going to lose your Brazilian property to the Brazilian partner entirely, because again, the concept of união estável, common law marriage, is exactly the distribution of assets during the course of the relationship. Okay, so if that happens to you, your Brazilian partner would retain 50% of your property. Like there are no basis for the Brazilian to take 100% of the pie. Like, I mean, they would be most probably entitled to 50% of the pie. Now, going back to the other, or going to the other side, right? Like I told you, this is more or less like the legal driver for distribution of assets. However, what I saw some people doing is like they would hide pretty much everything from abroad. They would try to keep a low profile when dealing with their Brazilian partners. And then, like at the end of this odyssey, like, I don't know, 5 years down the line, they would say, like he was, this relationship was good to me. I was very happy with you. And guess what? Like, I'm going to give you 50% of the property. As of now, it's yours. I'm retaining the other 50%. And if we don't have any headaches, like in the future, I'm going to give you the remaining 50. Okay, so that's typically a deal that I see some clients, making. Again, very difficult to assess how this would play out in the future in a specific relationship, but I'm telling you like something that is in the mindset of many Francis. They say, well, you know what, like, I mean, if I lose this whole property, but this person doesn't bother me with anything else, I think it's a good deal. Okay, so even though, yes, the Brazilian would be entitled to just 50%, I've seen with a certain frequency, for instance, say, you know what, just take this thing and leave me alone, right? Now, of course, how you're gonna draft an agreement to that effect is a different story, right? It's not just a matter of saying and the person agreeing. Like, I mean, whatever it's said, it could be, disputed down the line through a court. So there are many details to those things that we're talking over here. And, like if you're concerned, like if those things are important to you, my recommendation is to always schedule a consultation with a counsel of your choice for proper advisory. And by the way, if you are here with us enjoying the live stream, don't forget to like the live stream. So, whenever you like, this is good for us. We get something out of our live streams, and this is also good for other people just like you who are gonna find this content more easily. Okay, all right. So that's gonna be our first participation for today, and it's gonna be Aaron. The Golden Coin estate planning strategy involves a trust managed by a trust third party that holds your assets so they aren't yours, and courts can't touch them in judgments. Does it work in Brazil? Aaron, that's a very sophisticated concept. The way a Brazilian judge would think here, if they can tell from any evidence that you are using a trust structure like to obfuscate the ownership of the property, they are going to attach the property, all right? Because judges, they are, free to adjudicate distribution of assets from a reality perspective. So again, if you're just using some type of legal strategy or some type of trust or some type of a company, the judge is gonna do like in English, like the concept is called piercing the veil, right? In Portuguese, we call desconsideração da pessoa jurídica, meaning like we're gonna ignore that there is like a business, and as a parallel, if there is a trust, basically they are going to ignore to reach the reality of the facts. Okay, so I can tell you, if your Brazilian partner has evidence that you're controlling the trust, that you're using a company just to obfuscate the ownership, they're going to have a very good claim to pierce the veil, of either the company, the LLC, or the trust, or whatever you are using to, again, like circumvent the Brazilian legal system. All right. Very interesting questions. I want to say thank you to all of you for the participation, for the interest. Don't forget to like our live stream. And we're going to be together again on July the 8th. July the 8th means 7 days from now. We are meeting at the usual time. And I hope to see you again. Wishing a good soccer match for those of you watching Brazil on Sunday, July the 5th. And of course, to all our friends from the United States, a very happy celebration of 4th of July. You take